Clockwork or All Wound Up by Philip Pullman. And we know Philip Pullman because we read The Firework Maker's Daughter last term. And so we're familiar with the way that he writes, love all his books. I have got other examples of his books as well, so let's see what happens. So for this first guided reading session, we're looking at 2 LQs, so learning questions. The first one is, can I use my prediction skills to explore the beginning of the novel? And the second one is, can I explore how language is used to set the scene? Both of these LQs are related to each other. They both talk about the start of something, which in this case is the book, and they wonder if we can see what type of words Pullman uses to set the scene, and if you can use any prediction skills. So we're focusing on prediction skills and language. We use the acronym VIPERS when we're trying to find out about books and making sure that we cover all the skills. V, vocabulary, I, inference, P, prediction, E, explain, R, retrieve, and S, summarise. And today we're concentrating on vocabulary and prediction. So let's look at the vocabulary part of the VIPERS. So here we've got some questions relating to vocabulary. You can pause the video and have a look and see any more, if there are any more ideas you could use. We're concentrating on the first one. So what do specific words tell us about the character, setting, mood, and the author of the book? And secondly, you're looking at some predictive questions. We're looking at the first question here. From the cover, what do you think is going to happen in our text? So running through my questions, the first one is, look at the book covers and what do you think the story will be about? So I've started to analyse the front cover here, and I'll start with the title. So we've got Clockwork or All Wound Up. So I straight away thought this was very indecisive, that Pullman couldn't decide whether everything ran in an orderly way and smoothly, like clockwork, so that one would relate to clockwork, or is everything going to be all wound up? Is it going to be out of control and messy? And then I went on further with my thinking, and if it's all wound up, everything could be like a coiled spring, ready to jump into action. And then the other way of thinking about all wound up is that we could be angry, we could be wound up about something or annoyed, and that would be sort of in contrast to the clockwork part of the title. Then I looked at the cogs that were surrounding this character down here, and I thought they had spikes on them, and they were all sort of surrounding her, and they were closing in. So I wrote up here, cogs have spikes, they're unfriendly because they have little sort of spikes, and they're closing in on her. That could also relate to time running out. I feel like there's only a certain amount of time left before all the cogs start to close in. And then down here, I looked at the characters, this main character here. Perhaps she's going to be a main character, I don't know. I looked at her expression. She looks, is she being chased? Is she running away from something? So we could put here, is she running away? Is she scared? Is she frightened? She doesn't look happy at all, and she's actually running up some steps. Now, this is only the very beginning of starting to annotate this front cover. I'm sure you can think of some more ideas. So now we're going to think about the genres, so the type of genres that this book could fall into. So we've got, do you think the story falls into any specific genres? I thought about, it could be an adventure book. This girl looks like she's going on a journey. It could be fast-paced. Fast-paced. Could be a page turner. It could be a thriller. Could be full of suspense and excitement. And I'm sure that it could have lots of fantasy elements in there. And so from my ideas, I concluded that this book could be a thriller fantasy fiction. If you can just see that on the end. Now we're going to read the blurb, and we're going to think about who are the main characters of the book. and describe how the blurb entices the reader to read on.
Tick tock, tick tock. Some stories are like that. Once you wound them up, nothing will stop them. A tormented apprentice clockmaker, a deadly mechanical knight in armour, and the sinister Dr. Calmenius, who some say is the devil, wind up these characters, fit them into a story on a cold winter's evening, and the story begin to merge in a particularly macabre and unstoppable way. Almost like clockwork.
Oh, very well read there, Danny. It was quite intense and a little bit scary as well. So looking at the blurb here, what I've started to do is highlighting some of the effective words that Pullman has used and trying to bring them together to get an overall impression of the book. So I highlighted tick tock, tick tock. I thought that related to the front cover and the idea of time running out. I've got tormented. That relates to the tormented apprentice clockmaker. So there's a character, beginning of a character description. Another character, a deadly mechanical knight in armour. That's why I've highlighted deadly. And the sinister Dr. Calmenius. So that's 3 characters straight away that we've been introduced to. Then I've got cold winter's evening. And the snow swirling. So that gives you a bit of a setting. And trying to imagine how that setting could fit into the book and what that would be like in the story and how that would make the story feel as you're reading it. And we've got the last one is peculiarly macabre. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look up this word macabre, find out what it means if you don't know already. M-A-C-A-B-R-E. And unstoppable, I also wrote because I thought that related to time running out with kind of feels like events are going to be out of our control. The Independent has written a review here. Can fairly be compared to the great Gothic fantasies of the greatly missed Leon Garfield. So can you remember that we've already read a Gothic fantasy this year? And it was Vampirates. First book in the group of books, the collection of books, Vampirates. And this was a Gothic fantasy. Can you think about the theme that ran through the book, one of the main themes that ran through the book, and then try to wonder whether that theme that runs through the Vampirates books is related to our book Clockwork. So now you're going to read the preface. So now we're on to this section, last section here, and you're going to find words linked to time and record them in this first column of our table. And you're going to find words that suggest something menacing, so something frightening, scary or horrible. So something menacing, words that are menacing. So we're focusing on vocabulary. And lastly, you're going to find any words that you don't understand and look them up. And really that's a good practice to get into when you're reading, is try to work out, words that you don't understand and find out about them. So enjoy the preface. Here it comes. The preface is like an introduction to the book and gives us a flavour of what's going to happen. And then work your way through the lesson for next week. It will be on the website soon. And enjoy, and I will see you next time. In the old days when this story took place, time used to run by clockwork. Real clockwork, I mean, springs and cogwheels and gears and pendulums and so on. When you took it apart, you could see how it worked and how to put it together again. Nowadays, time runs by electricity and vibrating crystals of quartz and goodness knows what else. You can even buy a watch that's powered by a solar panel and sets itself several times a day by picking up a radio signal and never runs a second late. Clocks and watches like that might as well work by witchcraft for all the sense I can make of them. Real clockwork is quite mysterious enough. Take a spring, for instance, like the mainspring of an alarm clock. It's made of tempered steel with an edge that's sharp enough to draw blood. If you play about with it carelessly, it'll spring up and strike at you like a snake and put out your eye. Or Take a weight, the kind of iron weight that drives the mighty clocks they have in church towers. If your head were under that weight, and if the weight fell, it would dash out your brains on the floor. But with the help of a few gears and pins and a little balance wheel oscillating to and fro, or a pendulum swinging from side to side, the strength of the spring and the power of the weight are led harmlessly through the clock to drive the hands. And once you've wound up a clock, there's something frightful in the way it keeps on going at its own relentless pace. Its hands move steadily round the dial as if they had a mind of their own. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Bit by bit they move and tick us steadily on towards the grave. Some stories are like that. Once you've wound them up, nothing will stop them. They move on forwards till they reach their destined end, and no matter how much the characters would like to change their fate, they can't. This is one of those stories, and now it's all wound up. We can begin.